Hi, I'm Kent Vaughn. I'm one of the founders of Blaze Performance Solutions. David Williams and I want to welcome you to this microlearning course today. We're so excited to have you with us. David and I have been teaching leaders with large and small organizations for decades. We are operations guys ourselves. We're so excited to share with you a topic today called difficult conversations. The reason this is so important is because we know so many people do this poorly so often, including ourselves. And so we've created a simple 4-step process that will help you immensely improve the probability of success when you need to have a difficult conversation at work, with a family member, with friends, or wherever you might be. So excited to have you here. We're going to dive in just a second. Dave, you want to do a second to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so David Williams, and glad to have you participate in this micro-learning content around difficult conversations. I think you will enjoy it, and you'll see it being very beneficial to your development. So glad you're here. Glad you're here.
Awesome. Now I'm going to show you a couple of slides, and then we're actually going to ask you to start working, answering some questions on your own. And there will be 2 or 3 times in this program that we'll ask you to stop the recording and answer a few questions. So when you think about difficult conversations, these ladies are having a difficult conversation, but it doesn't look like a difficult conversation, does it? They're smiling, they're getting along, they're understanding each other. And that's what so often doesn't happen in difficult conversations. We don't understand each other. Why? Because something will happen. I'm a little frustrated. I go in kind of guns a-blaring, as it were. And that difficult conversation is filled with emotion that I started. And here's what we know. As emotion goes up, communication goes down.
Yep.
And if you need to have a difficult conversation, you don't want that. You don't want that. Now, let me just stop and let's talk about a difficult conversation you might be having in your mind. Look at David and I. We couldn't look more different. We're the yin and the yang. You know, I'm kind
of. You had to go there. You had to go there.
You know, we just had to do that, right? Guess people need to know, right? So I jokingly called David, Duck Dynasty or ZZ Top. If you've ever looked at the Duck Dynasty guys when they were in college, they looked like me, well, a lot younger. Like David. David and I are truly the yin and the yang of Blaze Performance Solutions. We've been friends for more than a decade and a half, and business associates for that long as well, and have worked with some of the world's best organizations. I mean, huge ones: FedEx, Walmart, Toyota, Nissan, ServiceMaster, banks, all kinds of organizations. But here's what we know: that if we can have a little fun and goof off a little bit and share with you some things that'll work, the barriers to learning go down and understanding goes up. So I just thought I'd hit it head on. You look at us and go, well, those guys, I'm like, more different. I was in the Army, Dave was in the Marines. So there you go. That's all you need to know. Right? Oh, when you think about difficult conversations, a lot of times people don't see this picture. They think of this picture. Now, this was me many decades ago, except I was the guy receiving the difficult conversation from the drill sergeant. I wasn't giving it. So when you think about difficult conversation, is this what you expect? Hopefully not. But we know that in more than a few cases, this is what it's devolved to if we're not really very careful. So we're going to ask you to think about 3 questions right now. In fact, as it says group discussions, but this is really for you to have on your own. So the first question is, how would you say you typically handle difficult conversations? Next question is, do you put them off or do you have them in a timely manner? And finally, the third one is, how well do they typically go? So what we'd recommend is you put the recording on pause right now and take as long as you want to answer those questions. Just be really honest. You're not going to have to share these with someone else. Now, if you were in one of our leadership academies, which we have going on all the time, we'd have you in a group talking about this, a live virtual academy or a recorded academy or an in-person academy. But take just a minute or 2, put this on pause and answer these questions for yourself. All right, welcome back. Hope you found that kind of insightful to think about what really happens for you when you're having difficult conversations. With that in mind, I'd like to share with you a quote that David and I use, frankly, all the time. It's by Albert Einstein, and he says, the definition of genius is taking the complex and making it simple. Now, that's what we've tried to do here with difficult conversations. There are some great books and tools about difficult conversations out there by lots of different names. We even know some of the authors of some of those books.
Yeah.
What we've tried to do is simplify the approach and the process down to 4 questions that virtually anyone can use in virtually any situation. Sometimes you might need a little more surround sound, but if you start here, you will be amazed at how these can help you have these difficult conversations and have them far more successfully and effectively, and not put them off, because that's what often people do. They put them off until they really become an emergency, or it's so long after the thing occurred that people go, why are we still talking about this, right? So with that in mind, David is going to introduce the 4 steps, or what we call the key 4 ideas, and then walk through the first 2 in detail.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. It's interesting that Albert Einstein quote, true genius is taking the complex and making it simple. And this is what we've done with this whole concept that Kent alluded to earlier around difficult conversations. Obviously, the books that have been written are very detailed at times. They're very thick at times. And so what we've done is, okay, how can we just boil this down to the most efficient and effective way for you to learn? And that's what we're getting ready to go through, right? So there is a better way, and the better way to having difficult conversations is based on the key 4, right? So whenever you go into a conversation and it's going to be a difficult conversation, you need to have these questions answered or have them answered in the conversation. The first thing is, what is the end result you're trying to achieve? What is the end result you're trying to achieve? And a lot of times in difficult conversations, you need to ask yourself, am I having this conversation to make this person better? Or am I having this conversation to make sure they understand who's the boss? So I can tell them the truth to help them, or I can tell them the truth to hurt them. So what is it you're trying to achieve? And so what are the facts as you see them? Right. So what are the facts as you see them? I'll share with you a quick story. Several years ago, my youngest son, by the name of Joshua, we were leaving church, and one of the ladies in church came up to me and said, "Your son's behaved very badly in church today." And I'm like, okay, what did he do? And she proceeded to tell me that he tore up his money before he put it in the offering plate. So we get home, and I start to have this conversation with Joshua, trying to understand why did you do this? That's inappropriate behavior. And I was kind of getting frustrated with him because the answers just weren't coming out. And his oldest sister, Elizabeth, came into the room and said, Daddy, don't understand. I remember looking at her very clearly and saying, "Oh, daughter of great wisdom, please tell me what I don't understand." So she was 6 and Joshua was 5. "Please tell me what I don't understand." And she goes, "Daddy, you don't understand. I left my money at home." And Joshua tore his dollar bill in half, so I would have something to put into the offering plate. So the facts as I saw them was that he misbehaved, because that was told to me. But as the facts ended up being put on the table, I realized it was an act of generosity, love, and caring, right? So just always, what are the facts as you see them, and be prepared to have your facts change. The third thing is what's going on. So what is the end result? What are the facts as you see them? What is going on? Right? So what's going on? And where do we go next? 1 and 2, you answer by yourself. 3 and 4, you answer what the person you're having a difficult conversation to. So before we go to the next slide, Kit, anything that you would want to add to that?
Well, the thing that comes to my mind, Dave, when you tell the story about Joshua and your oldest daughter, is how often this happens to me. And frankly, I suspect to all of us, where we think we know what's going on, but we really don't have all the details and all of the facts, right? In fact, it's probably impossible to have all of the facts. How many times have you had a conversation with someone and they give you some new information and went, wow, in your mind, you think, I had no idea. I had no idea that was happening, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we got to be really careful. So we're not in a situation where we're highly emotional and there's a lot of energy in the room and we're not getting all the facts, or we go in and we assume we know everything. And we all know when we assume how that's a problem. Yep. And instead of going in with an open mind and saying, hey, maybe there's something I don't really know here. So instead of coming in, guns a-blazing, let's go in and have a conversation, which really what this is all about doing. So I love that, and well said, David. So we'll take takes through step 1 then.
Yeah. So step 1. So we got the key 4. Now these are 4 steps we're going to walk you through. So step one is identify your intent, right? So what is your attention? Why are you having this conversation, right? And so we would encourage you, I would encourage you that anytime you start to have a difficult conversation and you're doing it because you're mad, you're upset, you're angry, then pause, because that is an indication that the conversation is about how you feel rather than understanding what took place. So identify your intent. Why you do. So what does success look like? Right? If this difficult conversation that you're getting ready to have, what does success look like? How would you be happy and content and excited about how the conversation is? So have that visual in your head, like what does success look like? And then lastly, the third component of step one is how do you feel they will respond? Try to put yourself in the other person's shoes and say, okay, when I start to have this conversation, how will they respond? So you need to make sure you understand that, right? So make sure you understand that component of how will they respond. And step two, it's all about focusing on facts, not emotion, not what you think is going on, not what you see. Focus on what are the facts? What are the facts that are actually taking place? So what are the facts as you see them? What are the results that has been caused because of this behavior or this activity, and why does this need to change? So focus on the facts. If you begin to get personal, if you begin to attack, if you begin to uh, approach us from a negative mindset, uh, you will lose. You will not be able to have a difficult conversation. It'll be an awful conversation, but it won't be a difficult conversation, because more times than not, difficult conversations are all about what do we need to do to help this person get better at their, whether it be their professional development, personal development. What is it we can do to help them out? So before we do the exercise and do a pause, Kent, what else would you add to what I talked about in step one and step two?
I just want to reinforce something you've already said, David, and that is steps 1 and 2. These two questions, you might call them, are for you to go through before you talk to this individual. Mm-hmm. Before you talk to them. Seriously, we were doing one of our leadership academies earlier this morning, and one of the guys in the academy said, and he was the retired military, now he's leads a security organization group for a large organization, and he said, wow, I'm kind of a, off the cuff kind of guy, spur of the moment guy. And he said, I found that when you made me write this down, which we're going to ask you to do in just a minute, it really helped me think a little more clearly about it and maybe not go off on tangents and maybe keep emotions down, right, which is problematic. Emotion is a killer to communication, that is for sure. So again, 1 and 2 for you to do on your own. Now, if you can sit down and take 5 or 10 minutes to do this, then do that, right? And sometimes maybe even a day to let the emotions kind of cool off, but not too long. The other thing is that we're also not saying you can't do it on the spur of the moment, but as you get ready to have this conversation, think about, wait, what's my intent, and what's the outcome I'm looking for, and what are the facts? And be really very careful about your language, because if we say, you always do this, you never do this, what that individual will immediately do, instead of listening to you anymore, is they will in their mind go back to times when they didn't always do that, or they in fact did do that, not that they never did it, right? And so your career, those are kind of fighting words that were, right? Always and never. Those kinds of absolutes like that are problematic by definition, because there's not a case where it's always or never. It may seem like it always is, but probably isn't. So with that in mind, we're going to ask you to stop the recording again to answer, to really work on those two questions. That's those two questions. So what we'd like you to do is identify a difficult conversation you need to have with someone, or one you've had in the past that didn't go as well as you would have liked, right? So stop and think about, well, again, a conversation you need to have, or one you did have that didn't go so well. And answer questions 1 and 2 to prepare for that conversation you need to have, or to practice for the next time. How do we get better? Well, we get better by practicing, right? So again, put the recording on pause and give yourself, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 minutes, whatever it takes, to go through this. And we promise you that taking the time to write this out will dramatically help you improve and see opportunities for helping yourself be better. So we're gonna stop talking for a second just so you can hit pause and come back in a minute or two, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you need. Okay, welcome back. We hope you found that was valuable to prepare for a conversation or to think about how you have had one that didn't go as well as you would like. And let me promise you that I personally have had so many of these conversations that didn't go well because I assumed things, I was frustrated, they knew I was frustrated, and because I assumed and I was frustrated, they stopped listening. They just checked out, like, I can't do anything, calm Kent down. The guy's crazy, right? What's wrong with that boy? So the more we take a little time to do this, the more it can help us improve our relationships, have more effective conversations. And here's the other thing. So often when people make mistakes or people do something wrong, they already know they made mistakes. I already know they did something wrong. So jumping on them with all 4 feet, as it were, as that old saying goes, probably isn't very helpful. Probably isn't very helpful because they're already kind of feeling worried about and concerned about it. So be very careful,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's jump to step 3, and that's if you were in a group, we would have had to do that. So step 3 is, what's going on? And so you're sitting down with this person, you're talking to them, you've gone through steps 1 and 2, and that could have gone something like this. Hey, David, listen, I wanted to have a conversation with you. I just had a presentation to the CEO and the board a few minutes ago, and I really needed that report. You said you'd get to me last night by 5. I didn't get it, so I just had to kind of put something together and go do the presentation. So, I just want to figure out what do we do to solve this for the next time. So I've stated the facts, and I have said it was kind of it was an issue, and what do we do to make this better next time, or get it right this time, or whatever, okay? Then step 3 is, hey, what's going on? Hey, what's happening? And David will come back and say something probably I didn't expect. And if I'm not emotional and frustrated and aggravated with him, and here's what he could very well say. Hey, I'm totally sorry, man. I dropped the ball on that. I totally forgot about it because at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon at work, I was getting started on that report. And then I got a call that my daughter had been in an accident on the way home from school. And so I ran out the door to go see what's going on. And it's like, oh man, what parent wouldn't do that? Of course, we'd all do that. I'm totally sorry. I should have let you know, should have given you a heads up. And then we were at the doctor last night, the hospital, and all the stuff. And I completely forgot about the report. Well, hey, anybody is gonna try to understand that situation. But because we're trying to find out, is there an underlying issue? No, there's not an underlying issue. It's just his daughter got an accident. Is there clear expectation? Yes, he knew what the expectation was. Now, this is really important because sometimes we find that we weren't clear on the expectation. Sometimes I find that I did kind of drive-by delegation. Hey, can you do this thing? Blah, blah, blah. Don't tell them anything more than the basics. Don't give them the why and any more detail. And then later they're trying to figure out how to get this done. So see if there's some underlying issue, like they've got to leave every day at 3 o'clock because their child gets home from school now and they've got to do a virtual at work because of things that are going there. And then finally, is there something we need to know? So have things changed? Has the world changed? What's going on? And remember, we're doing this with them. This isn't to them. We've gone through steps 1 and 2, and now we're asking, hey, what's going on here, right? That's what we want to know. But in a way that's not accusatory. In fact, we had somebody in one of our academies recently also say, by writing this down and thinking through it, it made me feel like I was less accusatory and more of kind of trying to search what's happening, right? Trying to investigate what's happening, trying to understand what's going on. Anything you'd add to this one, David?
So one of the thoughts that's come to mind is, as you were talking, and you talked about make sure you're not accusatory, make sure you're truly trying to understand the facts. And this is a very good approach to take, is that instead of calling somebody a bad employee, make sure they understand what they are doing that is not performance up to standards, right? So you're not challenging whether or not the individual is good, right? Are they a good person? Because you don't want to say they're a bad person. But what you do want to say is what you're doing is not getting the results that we need to be getting. It's not the expectations, right? So focus on the activity and don't be judgmental of the individual, because as soon as you tell somebody they're a bad employee, or they're really awful at what they do, and as soon as they start hearing that, they're going to be shutting down, because what you want to do is to improve the activity, improve the performance, and not call judgment to the individual themselves. Because kind of give you an idea, at home, this is what we do. We never we never say you're a bad kid, you're a bad child. We say what you're doing is not good, what you're doing is not bad. And so let's focus on what's being done. Let's stop that bad behavior and not call the child bad. So I know we kind of said that a little bit, but I wanted to bring it out in greater clarity as we're going through step 3 and step 4.
Well said. Yeah, absolutely. We're not making a judgment on their character and who they are as a human being here, right? We need to be very careful about that. Well said. Now, once you have share with them 1 and 2, the facts as you see them, what you want to have happen out of this conversation. You want to make this work, want to make sure we don't have this happen again, want to make sure everyone understands and is in agreement, and you've gone through this. Now, the last step or the last question is, where do we go from here? And you see these gentlemen are figuring out, hey, where do we go from here? What are the, number 1, the next steps? And it may just be, I'm not doing this, I'm doing this. You don't have time to do this report. We're going to ask Billy to do the report, whatever. Talk about accountability. Does everyone understand what we need, when we need it, why we need it, and all of the details around that? And are there some better results we're trying to achieve right now? Or are there some natural consequences that have happened that we need to work through as well? Don't know, but together you figure that out. And finally, express your confidence in them as a human being, as an employee, as a team member. What we don't want to happen is where we completely disenfranchise someone, where they don't feel valued, they don't feel like they're a part of the team, they don't feel connected. And we've just said, hey, you're a bum, and so is your mama. And I apologize if I offended anybody with that, but right, that doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So right. Step 4 is, now what are we going to do? Where do we go from here? And again, express your confidence and your belief in them. Yes, you can do this. I know you can. Because a lot of times we have situations where we don't feel like we've done well. And I'll give you an example. Many years ago, I was in a new job with an organization. I wasn't new in the organization. I moved from one role to a different role. And our sales team for the 2nd year in a row had missed the sales goals. And so I went down to Atlanta, Georgia. I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, to meet with my boss to review the year and plan the next year. And this was the 2nd year in a row that I was going to have to go to my boss. And he already knew. It wasn't like it was a surprise that we'd missed our numbers. And, in the sales world, and missing your numbers just doesn't work very well for very long. In fact, in any organization, doesn't matter what kind of organization you're in, you don't miss the numbers with the board, with the CEO, with your boss, whoever, very often. And so at the end of that discussion about the previous year and planning for the next year, I looked at my boss and I said, so you're not firing me? He said, why would I fire you? And I said, well, because we missed our numbers 2 years in a row, and that's just really not acceptable. And he said, in essence, he said, well, first of all, I think this job is harder than you thought it was going to be, isn't it? I said, oh, man, it's so much harder than I thought it was going to be. And then second of all, he said, so why would I fire you when I spent 2 years training you? Said, that's good, yeah. And he said, I have great confidence in you. You're going to be awesome at this. You've got some things to work on. We've talked about those. You've got some things you're already working on. You've already shared those. I have great confidence. This is going to be a great year. And here's what's interesting. I ended up working for that guy for another decade, or maybe a little more than a decade after that, and ran larger and larger teams. He moved up, I moved up, he moved up, I moved up. And you know what? We never missed a goal again, ever, in the next 10 years. We didn't miss a goal. No, we had some times we were very close. We had some things going on. But it made a tremendous impact on me when he said, I have great confidence in you. It's harder than you thought it was going to be. I knew it was going to be. You thought it was going to be really easy. It wasn't. And so expressing, it's amazing how we as human beings so often rise to the level of expectation. And so when a leader says to you, yeah, there's been a problem, we've had hiccup, we're going to solve that, we've worked through that. Now, hey, I got confidence in you. This is going to be great. And move forward and help them be successful. The other thing that's really important about this is to don't hold over their head this problem, this mistake from now on. It's done. It's over. You've worked through this one. Now, if they continue to have the same issues, then, okay, it's not done, right? But once they moved on, don't continue to remind them, of, if you will, of their past sins, their past mistakes. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that at all. David, what would you add to either of these steps?
Yeah, so I think just to really emphasize step 4, the question is, where do we go from here? It's not that person that you're talking to across the table asking them where are they going to go from here, but it is where do we go? Where do we go from here? Because that needs to be, people need to clearly understand that, and that's a question that gets answered with both parties, not just with the person that what's the word I'm looking for, instigated the conversation, right, or generated the conversation to take place. Make sure that that question is answered jointly in this meeting. Where do we go from here, right? So the next steps, the accountability, the results and the consequences, expressing your confidence in them. But that's a powerful question, and I just want to really emphasize it's about we, and it's a question that's done together, not by individuals by themselves.
Well said. Here's the last thing we'd ask you to think about. As you think about having difficult conversations at work, at home, in your avocational activities, etc., what can you do to stop from prejudging people in the situation? Dave and I just had this happen in one of our academies recently. Like I said, one of my problems, I'll kind of prejudge them and the situation, and then I walk in, my mind's kind of closed instead of being open. Go through what I've need to go through in terms of the facts and what I want to have happen out of the conversation, but then don't prejudge everything else. And so, again, if you'll take a few moments and stop and think about what do you want to say and why do you want to say it, and calm down. Your goal isn't to make them cry. Your goal isn't to make them quit. We hope not, right? And the other thing that's really important here is that whatever you're asking to do, you've got to make sure that as a leader, you're doing those same things. As David often says, you've got to be a principled, centered leader. You can't expect people to do this and this and this and not do that and that, and you're doing the opposite. We both feel very strongly that whatever expectations we have of others, we need to have those higher expectations for ourselves.
Because difficult conversations become exponentially easier the more you live the words of character, integrity, honesty, trust, trustworthiness. Those are powerful words. So the higher you are in living those words, the higher on the scale, living those words, difficult conversations become exponentially easier. They'll still be hard, but they're going to be exponentially easier just because of, if you will, you're standing within the organization because, boy, Kent, he's full of character, he's honest, he's always practicing integrity. You can trust him, he's proven to be trustworthy. And so that difficult conversation becomes easier and less complicated. But if you are kind of duplicitous, if you say one thing and do another, these difficult conversations are going to become exponentially more difficult because the person sitting across the table from you is going to be like, really? You're talking to me about this and this is what you do? So just bear that in mind, right? It can still happen. You can still have successful, difficult conversations if you're maybe not as good as a leader as what you should be, and you can obviously improve upon that. But we just want you to understand the better leader you are, the less difficult the conversations will be when you're trying to do this course correction, behavior correction with that person sitting across the table from you.
Well said. That did remind me real quickly, the undergirder to all of this is how much trust do we have in the relationship, right? And we have a really great little micro-learning course like this about trust and the two essential aspects of trust that we all have to focus on to help us be more trustworthy. And when we have a trust problem with someone, it always boils down to these two essential characteristics, character and competence. So we'll talk about those in another program about trust, but hey, we don't want to give you too much to focus on now. Just focus on this. So here's what we'll ask you to do within the next 2 days. Number one, prepare for a conversation that you need to have with someone. You know, you've already started with your action a few minutes to prepare and have a difficult conversation with someone you need to have. Stop putting it off. Have it within the next 48 hours. Set aside the time. Prepare yourself. Go have that conversation. Number two, teach these ideas to at least 3 other people. Share with them what we've just shared with you. And if they wouldn't want to watch the course, great, sign them up for the course, right? But share it with them and let them glean some benefit from the investment you've made to help you and your team or teams get better. Yep. So, anything else, David?
I would say when you do this, let us know. We would love to hear your story. So you're going to have our contact information here in just a minute, and please feel free to email us and tell us how you put this content to use. We always get excited to hear feedback from our customers and our clients on how our content has had a positive impact on their leadership within their own organizations, personally and professionally.
Excellent, excellent. So we hope you enjoyed this program. Please share it with other people. Let them know about what we're doing at Blaze Performance Solutions, and we hope this has been incredibly beneficial for you. Have a fantastic day. Thanks.